What is this? This is the Eric Crocker Show. Welcome to another live episode. I am your host, of course, former NFL and AFL defensive back. And on today's episode, man, we're getting to all things pertaining to the San Francisco 49ers with Ashley, who will be joining us shortly. But 49ers beat up on Tampa Bay Buccaneers 27-14. They actually, I think, did they cover the spread or it was like exactly on the spread? Either way, 49ers 13-point favorites. They won by 13 points. So shout out to the 49ers. Shout out to Brock Purdy. Shout out to Fred Warner. Shout out to Wilkes. Shout out to Kyle and everybody else that contributed to a great game for the most part. All right. You know what? I was thinking about the great game. Actually, first, before I get into that, of course, the show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, promo code Crocky. If you follow me on Twitter at Eric_Crocker, you can see everything with Underdog. I'm posting there constantly. I actually have subscribers that we made some money this weekend. Now, we lost some money yesterday, but we made some money this weekend for sure. If you follow my plays, you for sure, because I think I came up, I don't know, $1,100, $1,200 on Saturday. Yeah, but now I lost a couple hundred yesterday, but we was up for the weekend. All right. And then I created like a community. So, everybody, we can kind of talk about our picks and things like that. So Underdog Fantasy, download the app or go to underdogfantasy.com and use promo code Crocky. They'll double your deposit up to $100. It is back to $100. All right. So Underdog Fantasy, promo code Crocky. And we're going to get to Ashley and some of her thoughts on the game. But I have a couple of thoughts real quick, just from Twitter. You know what? No, I'm going to bring Ashley on so that she can kind of get some of this too. All right. So let's bring on our lovely guest, Ashley Ariana.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. So, Ash, I want to ask you, and maybe I should actually bring up the tweet. First of all, how's your weekend? How's everything? Everything good?
Everything's really good. I always feel better after 49ers victory, especially now it's a streak.
7-3 on the season. You know what? I typically feel good. For those of you who don't know, I've been working out, hitting the weights pretty much dang near every day. Sunday I was off, but today I went into the gym, did my little warm up on the bike, did my little stretch, got into some squats, did some heavy squats, and then it was weird. I was just like, I don't feel like being here, and I just left. And that usually doesn't happen. I'm usually there, like the gym is kind of just my time, but I did get my squats in, and that felt good. But that was it. So maybe I'll go back later if I feel like going back to the gym. I don't know. Uh, but usually I feel good too. I don't know. Today was a little weird. But I wanted to start with this, and maybe I'm being petty, maybe I'm not. I don't know. But let's look at. I need to make this. I'm going to share my screen with y'all. Shout out to John Chapman. John Chapman put up this tweet. We're going to share the screen here. And the 49ers is now the number one, now number one in the NFL in points per game, right? The defense. So my reasons for bringing this up is because for 2 weeks, I felt like the 49er fan base was getting they're bitching a little bit about this guy, Steve Wilkes. All right. They're just the crying that fire him and he doesn't need to be here and he needs to be not in the booth and he needs to be on the field, etc. Yada, yada, yada. Right. And when you go on a 2-game winning streak, I think it does come off as like, see, like that's the cure. That's the answer. Like having him on the field. Now he's great. Now he's ready to go. But through 5-6 weeks, 49ers had the number one scoring defense in the league. So now all of a sudden, it's because, and maybe it's just me. I don't know. I could be tripping. That's why I want to get your opinion on it. That's why I bring everybody in the chat, and we're going to bring some people on live as well today. But am I tripping to think that, like, people are being very critical of a guy? And instead of just saying it's 2 games that were poor, it's, like, he just can't coach. Or I mean, even the comments and responses to John Chapman's tweets are like, I still don't trust him. I still don't. It's like he had 2 bad games, and the bad games was you gave up 22 points and you gave up 31 points. Like those were the worst games of the year defensively. Do you think that they have? And now I'm going to ask the question: do you think they have unrealistic expectations for the 49ers defense, like the fans? Because I'm talking about the fans.
Yeah, I think I do. I think it's because of the standard that this defense has set under the Kyle Shanahan regime. Like they've kind of set the fans' expectations so high. So I understood during that losing streak why fans were, because it wasn't, you kept saying like points wise they weren't giving up that many points excluding that Bengals game, but I felt like the criticism more came from, or at least when I watched them and felt critical of it, it came from like the eye test. They just didn't seem to be playing with the same effort and energy that they had the first 5 weeks and that they have in previous years. And so I think that that's maybe where the criticism felt. Like I feel like fans can feel the 49ers defense and they do expect the defensive side to be the more dominant side of the ball, which is interesting because of all the stars that they have on offense. But I think that that's just the expectation that's been built under Kyle Shanahan and under the two other previous defensive coordinators. But yeah, I mean, I think they're doing phenomenal, and I do think not only on defense, I think the 49er fans just have high expectations in general. I mean, they've gone to the playoffs, NFC championship game, like the last 4 or 5 years or whatever, and some fans wanted the coaches fired at the beginning of the year. So
So I think, and again, I am a part of the 49er faithful. I'm a part of this fan base. So when I talk about people complaining
same.
and stuff like that, I include myself in that group of people, even if I'm not the one complaining.
I
But
was
it just
complaining to you about the defense, so I
right.
understand.
And I feel like, and we came on here and we talked about, I'm like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because I don't think that the defense is bad like that. I think they had two bad games. I think they played against two really good quarterbacks. Like I think Joe Burrow is a good quarterback and he got hot. I think that Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback and he was hot. Like he was efficient. He knew where to go with the ball. Like I didn't think it was just like, oh man, this guy's just so bad. Right. So, I look at what has happened since and what happened prior to those games. And when I look at Wilkes, I just think that he's given us everything. Like he's given us the shutouts. He's given us the dominant performances. He's given us the performances where maybe they weren't as good. He's given us the performances where it looked like the other team had the 49ers numbers because maybe their their quarterback was just better on that day. And that's what it felt like as opposed to a coordinator who can't coach. And that's where people were kind of trending with a lot of their criticism of Wilkes, which I thought was just really ridiculous from the start. I think that was very ridiculous. Uh, I even, was on Locked On and I talked about how, hey man, like, if your guys make some plays, right? Like the guys that you pay a lot of money to who are in position to make plays, they make a couple plays, like you're good. You're good. You're in a good position. If Nick Bosa, who didn't have a sack during that stretch, really, right? If he gets a sack, and you all of a sudden get Joe Burrow off the field, and instead of the drive going and they scoring a touchdown, like that changes the entire dynamic of this game. And I think since then that's what we've seen, like Nick Bosa getting the sack, Nick Bosa forcing the fumble. Now you added a guy like Chase Young, getting pressure on the quarterback, getting the sack, etc. Everybody else started, Fred Warner, like he was missing some tackles, like. Now he's flying all over the place. He's making plays. I feel like I watched a play yesterday. If you told me he jumped 10 feet in the air to tip a ball that looked like going over his head, like, they're making plays. I don't think that that's something that they didn't have in them or that they needed Wilkes to be on the sideline to do that. It's just, hey, man, I finished and I made some better plays. So that's what it looked like to me. We got JM16 in the chat, and he says defense looks flat when they got slapped by the Bengals. And I've seen a flat 49ers defense every year. Every year. There have been games where the defense looked flat. Like every year, there have been those games, like a stretch of games or a couple games where it's just like, that doesn't quite look like how they typically play, but we're going to let this play out and see where it goes. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're back to normal. Here they go. Without everybody making a big stink out of it. And that was just one thing that kind of is sometimes when things kind of rub me the wrong way, I feel like I start to get a little bit more emotional with my response. But the criticism of Wilkes, I felt like was it was a little extreme. We got Gabriel in the chat, and he says, what is your opinion about Ward playing too much soft coverage in the end of the fourth it felt like the Bucks were able to move up the field, only throwing 10-yard breaking. I was right in front of Ward. So I don't know what he's being asked to do, right? And this is a time where, and essentially what Gabriel was saying is Ward playing too soft at times. Let's just talk about what Ward's strengths are. All right. In my opinion, Ward is a press man guy. Like you want him in the face of guys. When we watched Ward on the Kansas City Chiefs, he was following wide receiver ones around in their face, playing press at the line of scrimmage, being aggressive with guys. If you beat them, you beat them. And there was a contested catch, which I saw him do some of that yesterday. But it wasn't like a whole lot of off unless he was forced to be off. Well, the 49ers scheme that Wilks has inherited has been the scheme which your corners are playing a little bit more quarters, playing a little bit softer, playing a little bit more, 7, 8 yards. And it's kind of like a match coverage, essentially. Like quarters is kind of a coverage where it kind of turns into man past a certain landmark. So it's not like cover three, like a sky cover three, where sky cover three, you're just going to be playing soft on the back end. And you have underneath help. Well, you don't really quite have that in quarters. So it's a little different. But I don't know if he's being told, just keep things in front of you, depending on the time of game. But we have seen him do that. But I just think the best football that we'll see Travis Ward play is when he's at the line of scrimmage and he's pressing. JM617 says we could tell, but Wilkes' criticism was warranted along with Kyle's. Okay, here and I'll kind of get off of this and we'll get to the next topic because there was a lot of great things that happened in this game. When we say the criticism of Wilkes, and maybe Ashley, you can help me with this. Mm-hmm. When we say the criticism of Wilkes, are we saying the criticism of him, of the defense not playing well for 2 games and telling him those are 2 bad games? Or are we saying the criticism of Wilkes that he should be fired for having 2 bad games? Because to me, those are 2 different conversations. If you're telling me the Bengals and Vikings game, he didn't play well or coach a good game or whatever, made some weird calls, the call before the halftime with the Vikings. If you're telling me that, like, hey, that he didn't coach well, there should be some criticism. Like 49ers defense did not help the offense in those games. I would say you're damn right. Like you're 100% correct. And if you're saying Kyle Shanahan deserved criticism along with them because the offense only scored 17 points in each of those games, I would say damn right. You are 100% correct. But if you're saying that the criticism of Wilkes forcing him to the sideline, saying that he should be fired, all that stuff was warranted, I 100% disagree. I feel like it was 2 games that were not good on his part. But how do you take that question or comment?
I imagine if they're talking about more general criticism, I think it's totally fine to be critical at, the players and the coaches themselves. Even after yesterday's win, even after a fantastic win, they're going to find something to critique and make sure that they're always improving. I think Kyle has said, and I think it's also just kind of a cliche saying, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse in this type of game. So yeah, criticism is totally fine. I do think, there were some over dramatic takes. There were some, I heard people were bringing up that he had 16 jobs in the NFL already, kind of trying to like insinuate that, he keeps getting let go and having to get new positions because he's not good enough to or good enough to be able to keep one. People are kind of, in my opinion, getting that was a little bit personal. I thought that wasn't okay, and that was like a larger content creator. And yeah, there was just like a lot of fan narratives, and sports talk is like this, but there was a lot of like, this coach is trash, get him off my team. And people were, and even myself I was hypothesizing, like, is Kyle Shanahan kind of passing blame off to him? Because it wasn't like the team, the players, or the coaches were really standing up for him either. So it was definitely a weird down moment where he had to kind of stand on himself, and it's extremely impressive that he was able to kind of respond to that criticism with such dominant performances. You know what I mean?
Yeah, ultimately, I think one thing that was missing was your playmakers, your best players making plays. And over the last couple of weeks, I think we've seen that where everybody's getting involved, everybody's making plays, and all of a sudden defense looks better. And I think a terrific job by everybody involved to try to clean this up. And it's not perfect. But again, the 49ers are back to being the number one scoring defense in the NFL. They give up the least amount of points in the NFL. So the extra criticism uh, directed towards Wilkes to me was very extreme for a guy who I felt like 2 games you didn't coach very well,
I think they're also number one in takeaways, which is crazy.
which helps. Which helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some more positive things here. Brock Purdy, he wasn't quite Glock 30 this game, which he's had that nickname Glock 30. They're scoring 30 points a game. It felt like it was a game they were going to score 30, but ultimately they didn't. Whatever. Uh, he had an amazing game. Played extremely well. Uh, and as well as he played, I think he did a terrific job making plays off script. He made all the throws. He was highly efficient. It's almost like it's almost the game is easy for him. That's what it feels like. Like this is easy for me. You need me to make this throw, cool. You need me to make this throw. I'm throwing the ball down the sideline. That slot fade to Brandon Aiyuk was a terrific throw. One of the more beautiful throws I've seen him make. Like the layer throws he makes, he's starting to do those with such consistency. It like comes off as easy. I think that's a difficult throw, but he makes it look easy. But man, that slot fade, throwing Brandon Aiyuk away from the defensive back over the outside shoulder, and then you see what happened from there. Brandon Aiyuk racing to the end zone or jogging to the end zone, whatever, scoring a touchdown. That was awesome. But should we put even more emphasis on what happens when you get your best players more opportunities? When you give Brandon Aiyuk more opportunities? When you give George Kittle, who had 9 targets, 8 catches, more opportunities than he had a big game. Brock Purdy, amazing. Playmakers, amazing. Your thoughts on how everybody played?
I think you're right. I think they played fantastic, and I think Brock Purdy deserves tons of praise for, and I'm sure this is a game plan situation too with Kyle Shanahan, but for distributing the ball. And we've kind of always talked about him being able to optimize this offense in ways that other quarterbacks haven't by giving his playmakers a chance to make a play no matter what. Um, I think that's really sorry. Someone just walked in my room and I got distracted. Um,
Happens to me all the time. You're
I
good. A lot of times it's
I
my kids and they're like looking at me in the face. I'm in the middle
that's
of
a
a
just
talking point with y'all, and then my daughter's just staring right here at me
my
because she
little
wants
sister
something
just did
and she's
that.
trying to wait, and I'm just like trying to keep my train of thought. So
Yeah.
it happens when recording live on YouTube.
Yeah. Um, but no, I think that Brock Purdy deserves a ton of more praise than what he's getting. The throws that he's consistently making and the opportunities he's giving his playmakers, it's not just a system quarterback type thing anymore. But yeah, as for game plan more for like Kyle Shanahan more, and you and I talked about this last week. We were like, why is George Kittle only getting 2 targets in games that they're losing? Even in these wins, getting 4 targets, like what would the offense look like if they were distributing these foot and giving these guys opportunities, and finally getting 9 catches, getting everyone involved? I think what's going on with Deebo though? I think I will say I was a little bit not impressed. I've been a little bit not impressed with Deebo, but I think for
Well,
Brandon
what part?
Ayuk
We can't
and
just gloss
for
over that and say that. What part of Deebo Samuel are you not impressed with?
the first, okay, he did have some. First of all, Deebo's my favorite player, but the first drive they target him, they give him a handoff, right, and then I think it's a second, or I think no, then they give it to, it was him, someone else, and then it was him. The first 3 plays, and he just wasn't separating, and it felt like he was kind of jogging his route on like the 3rd play of the game, and I was kind of like
I know
a
what player
little
you're
bit
talking about. It was
disappointed
like
that
a slant.
he's not
He was
showing up.
strapped. It was
Yeah,
I want to say maybe second or
yeah,
third down play. It was like double ends. You had the end from him kind of underneath, and then you had a deeper
yeah,
end from Brandon Ayuk who was lined up, in the
yeah.
slot. So here's one thing
I
about
feel like
about
he's been
Deebo.
struggling with separation a little bit.
Debo has struggled with separation for a while now. Like that's not really his thing. Uh, the way he typically wins is with positioning, right? So can I like just get inside? It's a terrific throw. I catch it and then run after catch. Or Kyle Shanahan does a good job, his first off coverage, and it's the scheme, allows him to kind of be open in space and then big run after catch, which we saw that on the extended play from Brock Purdy, right, where he had the big game. Uh, if you want Deebo to consistently be a guy where it's like, all right, it's 3rd and 7, and they're man press across the board, Deebo, you got to win this route, you know what I'm saying, or we go home or whatever. He is not ideally the guy I'm going to. Like, he's not going to be my first read on that. As a matter of fact, if we're talking about other 49ers pass catchers, in that, like, if I had a pecking order on who I would go to first, it would be
maybe towards
Aiyuk,
the bottom.
George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and then Deebo Samuel. All right. And again, that's not like a slight at him. I just don't think that's his biggest strength. He has a lot of strengths. He has a lot of value in the offense, but beating man press and you 100% counting on him beating his guy and winning that route, that's not where he's at, like, right at this moment. I think early on he kind of was that he could do that, but not right now. But again, we saw him still have 63 yards. We saw the big play, and somebody had posted a picture of like everybody that was around Deebo Samuel on this big play, and that play was, because I could look at the longest play, so 40 yards. All right, so it was a 40-yard play. There was like nobody in the screen when he caught the ball, and somebody attributed that credit to Kyle Shanahan. I feel like that credit should have been more on Brock, who was the one that kind of bought time, escaped the pocket, and then hit Deebo Samuel on the move. But again, you have to take what guys do well, and that's what I always do. Like, what do they do well? What isn't the strength of theirs? When it comes to Travarius Ward, I don't think he's a great off coverage guy, but I think press coverage, terrific. I'll line him up against most guys' press coverage, and he does a terrific job. Deebo Samuel, press coverage, straight man. I can't count on him winning the route because he doesn't show me like that's how he consistently wins now. So terrific skill set, terrific ability, but I don't think on that play that you're specifically talking about, on the where he just zero separation and you thought he was just jogging, he just was strapped because that's not necessarily that's not where Deebo's best value is. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. What kind of maybe with something that you're seeing.
Yeah, and I wasn't like trying to harp on him. I was just, when I was thinking about the distribution of the football, I do feel like Deebo, target wise, still gets, I think, the second most targets behind Christian McCaffrey out of anyone on this offense most of the time. Maybe that's not true for every single game, but I do feel like there's like a concerted effort to get him the ball, which I think is important because obviously you see the explosive plays and you see it work out. I was just impressed that this game there also was a big effort to get George Kittle and Brandon Aiyuk involved. And I think that meant they had to throw the ball a little bit more, which I think they were doing because Tampa has such a strong run defense, but maybe Kyle Shanahan can kind of learn from that and continue that on even against other teams that maybe he feels like he can run the ball on, because like he doesn't need to run the ball as much, if that makes sense. I think having a more balanced offense and giving these playmakers more opportunities. And we were talking about that, like they're still not getting like, Brandon Aiyuk in certain offenses would be getting like 10 to 14 targets every game. You know what I mean? So
right, he got like 6, and you saw what he did was
he's just maximizing his opportunities.
So I coach this kid running back at he's at Arizona right now. And Jonah Coleman, he's balling. I coached him since he was in middle school, but highest graded running back in Power 5 right now. He's doing amazing. I feel like he's running for like 100 yards every game. He's killing it at Arizona. And early in the season, they had this guy over him. He's a senior guy getting the NIL money. His name is Wiley or whatever his first name is. And with Jonah, I was telling him, I understand that you're not getting the carries that you ideally would like, but just make the most of every opportunity that you get. So if you're only going to get 3 carries in this game, then those 3 carries, like, make the most of that. If you get 3 carries and you get 3 catches, make the most of that. And I think he did a terrific job of that. And then eventually it was like, all right, I continue to make the most of these opportunities. Now I'm going crazy. Get me the ball however you can. And I mean, he's had several 170-yard games, between receiving and rushing, whatever he's balling. Brandon Aiyuk, even though he's not getting the volume of some of the other guys, right? Like I had I had Keenan Allen on Underdog Fantasy, his receptions, and it was like 10. I'm like, I'm taking that. He ended up getting 14 targets, right? Uh, with Brandon Aiyuk, he's just not going to get that volume in this offense of a guy, throwing him to him 14 times. So, no, you're right when you say, man, he's maximized his opportunities where he had 6 targets, 5 catches for 150 yards or whatever he had.
Yeah.
But in a different
And people,
offense, you would see him get more volume of targets going his way.
yeah, I was just saying people. Because I saw something like it averaged out to like 30 yards per carry or 30 yards per catch, and people were like, "Oh, that's only because of the big touchdown catch." But if you take that away, he was still averaging like almost 20 yards. And
Yeah,
I think Brandon Ayuk's yak ability is kind of underrated because a guy like Deebo is so impressive, because George Kittle is so impressive, maybe like in comparison, but he is like really good even after the catch as well. Brendan, I felt like last yesterday's game was kind of for in my eyes a little bit of a like coming out game for Brandon Aiyuk, where I've talked with you before. He's consistently potentially the best, pure wide receiver, whatever that means, on this team. He's consistently the most uh good, solid player, most reliable player on this offense. But I felt like yesterday he like stepped up. Like he was like, I am here. I saw that Kyle Shanahan had him give the like closing speech to like close down the huddle and break yesterday. I thought that was really nice. And the way Kyle was looking at him, I'm like, Brandon Ayuk is getting extended. You could just tell
yeah,
in
they
Kyle's eyes.
better they got to figure out how to make that happen. Right now, you just talked about yards after catch and all that. Of anybody that has more than 25 catches, he's number one in yards per catch, and it's not close. Now, Noah Brown, who has 21 catches, he averages the most yards per catch at 20.9, but Brandon Aiyuk is second at 19.3, which is great. And then the next best person is 16.9. There's a few guys with like 16.9, 16.6. You see that, but there's a huge gap as far as yards per catch between Brandon Aiyuk and the next best person. So when you talk about, just that yards after catch ability, and obviously like big plays like that contribute to it, but other guys are getting those big type of plays as well. So it's terrific to see that. I think even outside of the big 77-yard play, he's had those type of plays where he's just getting huge chunk yardage that's really making it to where he's going to be the NFL leader in yards per reception, which we've seen Deebo do that as well, maybe a slightly different way. And again, we have a lot of people talking about what Deebo is or what he isn't and whatever. Man, he get the ball in his hands, he's a monster,
For
and I think
sure.
that's going to continue. Uh,
And I think
they are
also
just going to
just like
get the ball in his hands
emotionally,
different ways. They're not going to run a third down. It's third down and 7. We got to throw this slant to Deebo Samuel, but they'll throw screens to him and they'll do different things to get the ball in his hands in space and then let his terrific ability kind of really take over from there. So, the guys, the 49ers are in really good hands with those guys. Who they keep, who they let go, I don't know. Did you hear about what the players said with, I think it was Odom? Maybe Aiyuk was leaving the podium, and Odom was like, "That's a $20 million man,
yep,
20 million a year man
yep,
right there."
yep,
And
yep.
then I guess
They're
Trent Williams
starting it.
followed up with 25 million a year.
They're starting it. They're starting it. I like
So
that.
they're gonna have to pay him, and then people are,
Yeah,
oh, I guess they're not gonna pay him. Like they guess they're gonna trade him.
they're gonna. I think
They
they're
can
gonna pay
figure it.
him.
They can figure it out if
Yeah,
they really want to.
yeah.
So
If anything, they could keep. I think the way the contracts work out, they can keep both of them for sure next year, and it'll be the next year after that that they might have to like work something out with one of their. Well, if they extend, they'd have to work something out with Debo after that.
well, they still
But
can pay him and play him on his 5th year contract. So you can kind of just add something to that. Like the 5th year contract money
do you
will be
think he
good
would
money.
like demand to get traded or something like that? I know that that's a bit dramatic, but I feel like I feel like the reason the players are starting to say that is because they probably and he probably is like, hey, you know, I want my money. He kind of said that last offseason when didn't he tweet like 1,000 yards on fourth option on a run
Yeah,
first offense? Like I think
yeah.
Brandon Ayuk is humble, but I think when it comes to getting paid, I think he knows how good he is, and I think he knows that his numbers are probably sacrificed being on a team with so many stars. And I think he's willing to do that, but I think he's willing to do that if he's going to get paid the way that he would on a different team.
I should
I don't
look
know. I'm
at.
just hypothesizing.
No, you're right. Let's look at targets, right? Like where is he in targets in comparison to
I
what
actually
he's
think
doing?
now he has a really, uh, he has this year he's gotten targeted a lot more. When he said he was the fourth option, I don't think he's the fourth option anymore, but
Where
I
the hell
understood
is
what
he?
he meant.
Oh, hold on. Let me look at the average again. Okay, he's at 61. So, oh, here we go. He's been targeted 61 times, which puts him at 43rd in the NFL.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, Cole Kmet has the same amount of targets as Brandon Aiyuk. Cole Kmet. Jahan Dotson, receiver for Washington, more targets. Elijah Moore, more targets. Nico Collins, more targets. Romeo Dubs. I mean, Tank Dell, Tyler Boyd, who's the third option
Yeah, that's like not
in
the people
Cincinnati.
that he should be in a list with.
You would assume that he would be ahead of those guys. You would assume with his ability, he would be in more of that top 15 range with Terry McLaurin, AJ Brown, Chris Olave, CeeDee Lamb. Adam Thielen gets targeted a ton. St. Brown, Michael Pittman, he's top 10. TJ Hawkinson's top 10 in targets. Puka Nakua is top 10. Like there are some guys that, and again, I do understand the uh, I understand the weapons that they have around him, but he might be maybe your most dangerous one.
Yeah.
You need a charger.
Just for the laptop.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Just figure out a way to get him the ball more. All right. Now I do have another question for you.
Tell
And
me.
shout out to my guy Chris. He talked about this. Do you believe? Oh, actually, hold on. Let's stay back with this because here's a question here. He's on pace for 1,400 yards with lower catches than your average top one receiver who's catching 90 passes a year. And that's because he's averaging over 19 yards per reception. So he's doing a terrific job of, again, maximizing his potential, his ability, and making the most out of every catch. And even being the 40th person or whatever, they're doing yard outside my house now, but even being the 40th or whatever he is, 43rd in targets, he's still on pace for 1,400 yards, which that's crazy. That's crazy. I think that shows how good he is, but also shows he's not stupid. He knows, like,
Yeah.
man, if I was somewhere else, what would I be doing? You know.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
now you got to balance. Do you play for a team that might be lesser than the 49ers, and maybe you don't win as much, but your numbers are up? Or do you say, you know what, I'll be good with however 49ers utilize me as long as I'm gonna make the same amount of money. But if you're not gonna pay him, if I'm him, I'm out. Like
Yeah.
it is a business. Like the NFL is a business. Like
And I think he's
because
gonna
the moment
want.
they feel like they don't need you anymore, like they'll let you go, or they'll try to get
Yeah.
you to restructure or renegotiate or all this type of stuff. So when you have an opportunity to make money, you get it, whether that's with the 49ers or with goddamn Arizona Cardinals or whatever. Like go get your money.
And I do feel like Brandon and Aiyuk maybe feel some loyalty to the 49ers, but also with that doghouse situation, don't you kind of think that like showed him right away his like entry to the league kind of showed him like this is a business. So I don't think he's going to feel uncomfortable treating it like that cuz he's going to be like, "Hey, I know what happens when I'm on your good side and you like me, and I know what happens when you don't. So I'm going to look out for myself in this situation." It'll be an interesting offseason. I like that you said he's going to have to decide kind of, does he care more about his legacy as like an individual wide receiver or his ability to like chase Super Bowls with such a loaded roster.
These dudes got family. Like I see sometimes, I'll be scrolling on Twitter or social media, and I see somebody post a video of like his son watching him play, and
Yeah.
daddy scored a touchdown, and so
Yeah. I follow
these
his life
guys, people
on
just think like, oh, it's
TikTok.
just about the money with these guys. It's about money. These guys got families that they take
Yeah.
care of. You know what I'm saying? So like, if it's gonna come down to you trying to play me over some bread, like I'm not taking less. Now there might be
Yeah.
some guys that just got the money and they're good to go. Nick Bosa wasn't taking less, and he ain't even got kids and none of that. And his brother's in the NFL, and his dad was in the NFL, and his uncle was in the NFL, and he still wasn't taking less. So if I'm Brandon Aiyuk, man, he gonna go get his money. Hopefully it's just from the 49ers. But if not, hey, it's, it's on it's on them. It's
It's
on
kind
them.
of interesting because you said that both of those players recently brought up his contract just in yesterday's press conference, and his wife, Brendan, or I don't know if it's his wife, but long term girlfriend, Brandon Ayuk's the mom of his child. She has a TikTok, and she just put out a TikTok where they were talking about like house hunting, and she was like, "Yeah, the only problem is like we don't know if we can buy a house because like we don't know what's gonna happen if they're gonna like value him." So it's kind of interesting that all these like people are like putting these little seeds out there. Like I feel like it's starting, you know?
It is starting, and people know that there's that window. What's coming? Like it's ahead. It's around the corner. It's just trying to figure out. Now, somebody had a great question here, and let's see if it's still around. But the question was, if you had to choose between the two, you have to pay Brandon Ayuk or Chase Young. Who are you paying?
Oh,
And again, I don't even know if that's a real scenario. But if it
yeah.
is, if it is
I feel
something
like
where
they
they're
can
like,
pay
we're trying
both.
to figure out where to allocate our money, or and it's like, okay, Brandon Ayuk, great receiver, he's the guy that's homegrown. Do you keep him, or do you say, man, it's hard to find a bookend edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa? Do you pay him?
I think positional value, you might have to go with Chase Young. But my initial instinct is Brandon Ayuk because I'm like, well, the defense has Bosa, they have Hargrave, like they have all this talent. But now that we kind of seen that they struggled a little bit to produce and how much better they're doing with the addition of Chase Young and what he opens up for them, and just that because you do have to think with the Brendan Ayuk thing, like, and I know it is rare, but there's a lot of teams that draft wide receivers pretty high, and you know what I mean. Yeah, when they were gonna trade Deebo Samuel to the Jets were gonna give up pick number 10, right? And that ended up being Garrett Wilson. Would the 49ers be mad if they had Garrett Wilson right now? No.
Hell no, dude looked
Exactly. So
amazing.
like I think that when it
That is
comes
a
to
great
positional
point, Ashley. I never, I mean, because it is water under the bridge. It's a situation, whatever.
yeah.
Uh, and that's not the reason why they didn't pull the trigger. Like, to me, it was a stupid trade. It's like, if I'm gonna get Deebo Samuel, or if I'm gonna trade Deebo Samuel, like, just give me that first. And like, okay, they were trying to
Yeah.
take 49ers pick
Yeah, it was
61.
weird. Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, you want Deebo and 61 for your 10th overall pick? Like, absolutely not. All right, but
But the
as far
Jets
as how
probably
Garrett
don't
Wilson, like,
regret
what that would
the
look like,
49ers. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like the
it,
Jets
it,
are probably like happy it worked out the way it did.
I would say that if you would have Garrett Wilson and Brandon Ayuk, your offense would look a little different in the sense of, and Debo puts a certain level of stress. He's just different. He's just different. So it's hard to
Yeah.
say what's
Yeah.
better or what's not better. But that is something that I
Just
never thought
totally
about.
different. Yeah.
But
Different
anyways,
styles
back
of
to
play,
the
but
the,
because
the
of
question.
because instances like that happen and then it's obviously an outlier, but you think of Minnesota trading away Diggs and then getting Jefferson. I just think there's a higher probability that you're going to be able to find a wide receiver than I don't know. Like I said, my initial instinct to that question was to keep Aiyuk and trade Young because you think of all the talent that the defense already has, and you do want this offense to have that like number one consistent guy. Because yeah, they do have Deebo, but Deebo gets hurt, Kittle gets hurt. All these guys are good, but I don't know. My initial instinct was to keep Brandon Aiyuk, but I think when I think about positional value more, and I don't know. I can talk myself into paying Young and letting Aiyuk walk and just drafting a wide receiver. But then I start thinking about the Kinlaw situation and how they replaced I don't know. They don't do the best when they get rid of a guy and then try to just draft his position when they're drafting for need. I don't know if that's the 49ers most successful thing. Also, the 49ers like to um redshirt their rookies, I feel like in the Shanahan scheme, they don't really produce right away. So you're gonna be losing like a lot of offensive production if you trade away Brandon Ayuk and a wide receiver is like, you know, getting even less catches than Brandon Ayuk got. I don't know. It's going to be a tricky one for John Lynch, and that's why he's paid the big bucks.
You made a lot of great valid points there. I think just again, you talked about positional value. An edge is more valuable than a receiver. Like just off of positional value, just positional value, who you would draft first, right? If you would say you got the number one overall pick and you can take Tyreek Hill or you could take Myles Garrett or TJ Watt or Nick Bosa, who are people going to take?
Yeah.
They're going to take the edge rusher. Most people. Now, that's not to say that Tyreek Hill isn't terrific. That's not to say he's not dynamic. That's not to say he's not a game changer. But you'll likely just say, okay, let me get this crazy edge player, and then I'll figure out the receiver aspect of it. And hopefully the 49ers don't have to deal with this again. We're talking about Brandon Aiyuk as if he's going to be a free agent this coming offseason. Like Chase Young will be a free agent. Aiyuk won't be. He'll be on his fifth year option. So technically, you ain't got to do nothing with him. But
So
what will that
I have a
mess up the
question.
dynamic of your relationship? Like with the,
That's
you know what I'm
what
saying? Like that's the part where it's like, well, we don't have to trade you. We don't have to sign you right now. We can pay Chase Young and then wait till the offseason and then handle you. And then maybe franchise tag you so you don't go anywhere. Like they have options to kind of hold him hostage. But clearly, this is something that has been talked about when you hear his girl talk about house shopping and not knowing the situation. When you hear the players throwing out bread like, oh, 20 million a year guy, 25 million a year guy, like everybody understands kind of what's coming. I think Aiyuk does as well, especially for a guy who, he's made some money, but he ain't like balling ball. Like Deebo, we look at how much, and again, I don't want to count other people's pockets, but their pockets are drastically different right now. Deebo is making like $1 million a week, like more than
That's
that.
so crazy. That's so crazy.
You know what I'm saying? And if I had to guess, Brandon Aiyuk is making like $1 million for the entire year.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's different. So it's like, bro, I need that. So how, I think I would have to look and see what the fifth year option is for a receiver. It would probably be much better than what he's getting paid right now. But
I
is it
wonder if
something
he
that
would
he wants to
be.
play on without having that long-term security?
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if he would be like offended if, and the 49ers have kind of talked about themselves as being like a player organization. So if that would make him disgruntled, I don't know if they would do
I
that.
think they try
I
to
don't know.
figure it out. I think they figure it out. But that's a great one. That was a good question. I saw it in the
It's a
chat,
good
and I thought
question.
somebody had that's a good question. If you had to choose, like if that was what's on the table, if that's where,
So is yours? Yeah, you would pay Young. What was your like? You also did what I did. You gave like answers for both. But if you had to
I
choose,
love Brandon Aiyuk. I love him in this offense. I love what he does. If I had to choose between the two, I would take the edge rusher. I just think they are much harder to find. That's if Chase Young, you got to finish strong. Like I know what Brandon Aiyuk is. I know what he's gonna do for the rest of this year. I know Aiyuk is gonna
That's
ball
something
out.
to consider because Chase Young does struggle. He has an injury history that Brandon Ayuk doesn't have. Knock
Yeah,
on
I
wood.
mean, so right, and I saw somebody in the chat bring up I think here's Adrian right here. Adrian was like, that was mine, Croc. So Adrian had the question about who you would keep. Again, it might not even be a decision that they have to make this offseason, but if you do have to make it, and if you're looking long term and maybe thinking like, all right, we're not going to be able to pay him, so let's just trade him now, or we are going to pay him and we're just going to let Chase Young walk. That would be tough for me because the edge rushers are just so much harder to find. Chase Young gonna have to, if Chase finishes this year strong, and it's very clear like this is a legit long-term starter opposite Nick Bosa, and he kind of fell in your lap for a late third, and you were able
You
to
gotta
sign
hold
him
on to
for less, it wouldn't be like top tier money, but let's say a 3-year contract or 4-year contract, and it's like 16 million a year or something like that. Like you're able to get him for that. I would pay him before I pay the receiver. Like that would just be if he continues to play very well and stay all that stuff. I would pay the edge, and that's not it's not anything bad on Aiyuk. I love Aiyuk. I don't think Aiyuk is just this easily replaceable guy. I think you made a great point when you said receivers in Kyle Shanahan's offense, they kind of have like this red shirt year. Like they don't come in just clicking right away and just playing well for whatever reason. They kind of end up in dog houses. We've seen it with really all his young receivers. So
Literally.
that's definitely something to factor in as well. As like you go and you get all right, let's go. Okay, you keep Chase Young, you trade Aiyuk away, which if he continues on the trajectory he's on right now, and it wouldn't be crazy. Like we saw AJ Brown get traded. Like
Yeah.
we saw Diggs get traded. Like it's not crazy. Guys that
Yeah.
played and were highly productive for their teams. Like we've seen them get traded. So if you see them get traded and you get what those teams got, which is a first round pick, now you got 2 firsts and you're able to maybe go get a receiver. Like, would you not want Marvin Harrison Jr.? You know what I'm saying? Now he's probably going top 5, maybe. I don't know. He's kind of going crazy right now. But like, would you not want Marvin Harrison Jr.? Like, you know, and you get to pair him with Chase Young. Would you not want Keon Coleman, the kid out of Florida State, 6'4", like fluid, athletic, jumping over dudes? Like, would you not want him and Chase? And it's like I get to keep him and Chase Young, or okay, I'm gonna keep Aiyuk, keep him, and then continue to kind of merry-go-round and just throwing whatever at edge rusher and it not being as good of a Chase Young. Like that's a great question.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you have to wonder if a guy that good comes out, does Kyle still kind of put him through that rookie treatment that his wide receivers go through?
And I think he will.
I think so.
I think he will.
I think so too. I think so too.
Shout
like
out to
we used the Garrett Wilson example. If Garrett Wilson would have been drafted, like Kyle Shanahan would have been like, "There's the bench."
Yeah, you missed this block. And whatever Kyle's method is, eventually it works.
It works, yeah.
Eventually. Yeah. But would the guys have as much early success like Garrett Wilson? He was Offensive Player of the Year, or Offensive Rookie of the Year. Would he have had that success year 1 with Kyle? Maybe year 2, maybe year 3, he has like a different level of success. But right away, when he's trying to figure it out, and Kyle's like, I don't have time to wait for you to figure these things out. So you just gotta, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, Garrett Wilson played that similar offense. Like his rookie year, I want to say, was it still the guy that came from the 49ers?
Yep.
LaFleur? Was it LaFleur?
Yeah. The Packers.
Well, on the Jets, right? The one that went to the Jets. So like similar offense, and he played well. Interesting. All right, we got Akshay in the chat, and he says, off topic, that Warren 9 rushing attempts was malpractice. I'm still mad. Hey, if y'all don't know, oh my goodness. All right. Maybe I'll show y'all. Hold on. Maybe I'll show y'all. It was a heartbreaker for a lot of us. All right, I'm gonna show y'all where I lost out on not having that carry from him. Okay, so is it this one? No, I won't show y'all. But anyways, we needed one more carry from Warren, and him not getting that one carry made me miss out on $600. And they had opportunities to get him that carry, but instead they gave it to Najee Harris. And Warren was going crazy. I mean, he had like 150 yards. He had a long touchdown run. He was like running extremely well, going crazy. And we needed one more carry to hit. And because he didn't get that, it messed up 2 of my parlays, and I didn't hit only because of that. Not his over under on his carries was at 9.5. He had 9. We needed him to get 10. And
I feel like I would be so insane if I gambled. Like I would like scream. Do you become one of those people that like screams at your TV?
I wanted to fly to Pittsburgh and have a talk with Canada, the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Like people are asking how much do we think that Brandon Aiyuk will get. Okay, so not just Brandon Aiyuk said, okay, Croc, what's a good contract for both? I think we can keep both.
I agree.
I edge rusher is really weird. I would have to pull up all the contracts and stuff like that. It really depends. If Brandon Aiyuk gets 1,400 yards, he's been trending in this direction. Like he's been trending this way. Like you said last year, he was a 1,000-yard receiver as a 4th option. This year, if he gets 1,400 yards and it's time to start a payday, like I got to get paid, why would he not get 22, 23 million a year? So now you're going to have 20 million a year allocated to Deebo, and then 23, 24 million a year, or whatever it is, 25, whatever it would be. I'd have to look at the top NFL contracts for receivers, but it's up there.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to pay them. So I would think that it would be kind of close to what Trent Williams was saying, up 25 million. It would be near that. Now Chase Young cheaper, I would say, because he hasn't had the breakout year, hasn't had the
Yeah.
breakout seasons. He's playing well right now. Maybe he gets double digit sacks. Maybe if Danielle Hunter's a free agent, you're gonna pay Chase Young more than Danielle Hunter? No. Are you gonna pay him more than somebody like so?
It's
I
also
think
like
that
about consistency and his injury history
right.
and stuff. Yeah.
So, but because of the position and the value, especially if he finishes his year strong, I could see Chase Young getting 16 million a year. Like
Yeah.
I could see that. Now maybe it's a 2-year contract, maybe it's 2 years, 32 million with 20 guaranteed or something like that, or whatever. I don't know. I'd have to bring on the capologist. Uh,
Will it
and
be
we
something?
I do got one guy with.
I don't know how this works, so this could be just the dumbest question ever. But will it be something if the 49ers want to pay him? Is he like a free agent? Like, can he choose to go somewhere else if someone else will pay him more, or because they have him right now, will they get like the opportunity if
49ers?
they want to? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The 49ers can no, he might. You can
Does
try
that
to get
make
it
sense?
done before March 12th or March 13th, whenever that new league year starts. You can
Yeah.
try to get that deal done before then.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like, because it's only a 1 year rental, right? Like he could
Shoot,
leave at the end.
half a season rental. Yeah.
So, like, what I'm saying is if the 49ers are like, "Hey, we really like you. We'll give you 16 a year," and another team is like, "Oh, we'll give you 17," like, is it the same as Brandon Aiyuk where he could, like, choose to go somewhere else? Or
Well,
could
Brandon
he,
Aiyuk
like,
can't choose to
sign
go
with
anywhere. He got his 5th year option.
that's what I mean. Is it the same? I maybe phrased that wrong, but
No, no, no,
can
no, no,
Chase
no, no,
Young
no.
choose to go somewhere else?
Chase Young will be a free agent after this
Okay.
season. He will be
Okay.
free. He'll be free to go. But you do have a window where you can sign him. You can try to negotiate and sign him before he hits the market.
Oh, okay.
Now,
I like that.
his agent might say, "No, we want to test the market, and then if we don't like what we see, or you guys can match a deal, then he'll sign back with you to play with Bosa." Like that is something, but you have to have the money ready and available to hear what's out there for him, what other teams are offering, and then be able to match that and bring him back to your defense. And that's when it comes back to what are your future plans, and are you going to potentially blow that up? If your future plans were we're going to bring back Aiyuk no matter what, are you going to blow that up for Chase Young? I don't foresee them doing that. But again, I don't even know what their plans are. And do they plan on, which I know with Deebo, they didn't plan on Deebo having a 1,400-yard season
No.
and then having to pay him 20 million. They did not see that coming.
No.
So those are the things where John Lynch is gonna have to make his money.
I kind of feel like I answered my own question in my head just now. I think that Chase Young, if given the opportunity, like as long as the payment discrepancy isn't crazy, I think he would probably take a little less to stay with the 49ers because he was just on Washington. Like he knows what it's like to kind of be in a culture where he doesn't feel good. I think if he has, because this is all dependent on him having a great, fantastic rest of the year, right? So I think if he feels like he can thrive in this system with these players around, I could see him choose, like, just as a player also wanting to stay. You know what I mean? So that, and that's kind of like helpful when it comes to negotiations if like both parties like want it to work out. You know.
Yes, but again, it all comes back to the money. So yeah, I would love to play here. I love this environment, man. It's different. I walked in this locker room. It's not like Washington. I have fun. I enjoy it. Like this is great. I get to play with Nick Bosa. Like the vibes is cool. We turned up before with the boombox and Trent Williams, and like man, I would love to stay in this environment. Like this is cool. But don't try to lowball me. Don't try to pay me less than what I'm worth. And when it comes to that part, like you have to look out for yourself. So um, we'll see how that goes. Now, while we've been on here live, and I saw Coach Desi. Shout out to Coach Desi. We'll be on this Wednesday, but she was in the chat, and I saw someone else talk about it as well. Confirmed
Okay.
torn ACL for Hufanga. Uh, Full disclosure, I watched most of this game from my cell phone yesterday. We had tryouts for a 7-on-7, Elevate 7-on-7 tryouts out here in Stockton, and you know, I most of the game I'm either watching on my phone, especially the whole first half, or the phone was in my pocket and I had my AirPod in, so I'm listening. So like Brandon Ayuk's touchdown, I could hear first of all, listening to a broadcast like a television broadcast, and listening to like a radio broadcast are drastically different. A radio broadcast, they're really explaining everything in detail what's going on. TV broadcast, I think they're expecting you to be watching it. So
Yeah.
I didn't know who scored. Like I didn't know it was Aiyuk. Like I'm listening. I kind of missed the first part. Then I'm like 77-yard touchdown. Damn, who did that? And they're like, he's running and he's jogging into the end zone and it's a touchdown. I'm like, well, who scored? So I had to pull
You're
out my
like,
phone. I look. So we see that. But I was watching when Hufanga towards ACL, and I'm looking and I'm like, damn, he broke his
Holy
ass off.
shit.
Now I didn't know he got hurt,
Yeah, I didn't
but I
either.
just
I
see
didn't either.
Hufanga just get whooped, and I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Now I'm laughing about it with my buddies. Like, man, that looked like when Barry Sanders shook right. And you might be too young for this, but there are other people that are older. They'll remember. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
27.
You're too young for this. All right, so back in the day, Barry Sanders. You know who Barry Sanders is?
Yeah. My dad's talked about him.
Running back for the Detroit Lions. Shiftiest back of like all time. Between him and Marshall Faulk. Terrific, both of them. Gosh, you're too young
Is
for
he the
Marshall
one that
Faulk.
that cursed them? Is he the one that cursed them?
Uh,
Calvin
did he,
Johnson. Calvin
no,
Johnson.
Calvin Johnson. No, look, Barry Sanders is well before Calvin
Okay.
Johnson. All right.
But
But anyways,
didn't yeah. Sorry. I
there's
was
this
gonna go on a
corner,
tangent.
flat safeties. And there was Rod Woodson. Rod Woodson was a 4-3 guy, a blazer, like just super athlete, right? And that's the part too.
Yeah.
People always like, way more, these guys are more athletic. Not like, man, they had super athletes back then too. All right, Rod Woodson was a super athlete. Charles Woodson, Deion Sanders, like super athletes. But anyways, Rod Woodson went to go tackle Barry Sanders in open field. And Barry Sanders just just whooped him. Like the shiftiest guy in the open field. And you just see Rod Woodson fall straight to the ground. He tore his ACL. So as soon as I saw Hufanga, it looked just like the Rod Woodson tearing his ACL. I mean, just like it. So I'm laughing. I'm like, this guy did like Rod Woodson guy did. What?
Oh, that's crazy. You
And
like
then I hear like, oh, it's more serious. Oh, he's not coming back. I'm like, damn, what happened with Hufanga? And again, half the time my phone is in my pocket. I'm
yeah.
listening. Other times
To
I'm
be
looking at
fair,
the
I
screen.
was watching the game and didn't realize. Like I saw on Twitter that he was like out for because it looked like he just like got juked.
When
And the
you look at
broadcast
it,
people weren't like, oh, he just tore his ACL. Like everyone was like, oh,
well, when you look at it again, you can kind of see like I could see where his knee kind of buckled, but that was unfortunate. Now the other side of it is, and prayers up to Hufanga, hoping for a speedy recovery. Hopefully, he come back for the start of next year. You know, you got a long recovery process, and if anybody's kind of made
talking
for
about
that, I think he is.
contract
So,
years. Talking about
uh,
contract years, that sucks for him to have to come back when he's because isn't next year after that he's gonna get paid. So
Hufanga,
hopefully, yeah.
yeah, because this is year 3, so year 4 is definitely his contract year. He might end up being a free agent. We'll see how that works out. But he, something that goes down like that, and it's very unfortunate. But next man up, right? Like that's kind of got to be the mindset. And it's Ji'Ayir Brown, and Ji'Ayir Brown got tested right away. And anybody listening to Locked On 49ers, me and myself, Brian Peacock, I'll talk about what. Matter of fact, hold on, I'll show y'all. So I got a group chat with Peacock, and I'm not sure if y'all can see it, but as soon as it
Yes,
happens
sir.
at 3:15, I text him something. Can y'all see that?
His 40 time?
His 40 time. And that's it. Just the 40 time. And a lot of people you can hide guys and you can hide some of the deficiencies, right? Like Hufunga's not the fastest guy. And you got to learn how to utilize guys, etc. But when we talk about, everybody try to make it seem like these things are never an issue, right? Whether it's like quarterback arm strength. I'm like, well, you don't need a big arm until you need a big arm. Like
Yeah.
there's certain throws that some other guys will attempt and they can do it because they have a big arm. Other guys, like even like Brock Purdy's like, well, I can win in all these different ways. Like I can't win like that, so I'm not going to throw that ball. Right. And we hope that the throw where it's like Brock needs a bigger arm just never happens. Like we just hope that he continues to play how he plays and doesn't need that big arm. It's kind of similar with speed. Like receiver, you don't have to be the fastest guy until you actually need to run away from a guy and games on the line and oh man, I got snatched from behind and all of a sudden we lose, right? Like dang, wish
Did
you were a
you
little
see the
faster then.
Chargers running back get like it was just a clear, easy freaking
Yeah,
touchdown
down the
and he
left
got caught
sideline.
up?
and he just got snatched from behind, right?
Oh,
Like, and with defensive backs, especially as
mhm.
safety. A lot of times you can hide a safety that's not the fastest guy, and people are like, "Well, it's GPS." I don't care about the GPS. I'm telling, like he's not the fastest guy. Like when I watched the film, it was like he plays well like this. He could fly around right here, but if he gets in a foot race with a guy, he's not the fastest guy. He's just not. So right away they tested, and the turn and run wasn't ideal. That's tough. I would not put him in a position where he has to be matched vertically with a guy with a head start on him. I don't think that's a strength of his. So there are other areas where he will play well. There are other areas where Hufanga plays extremely well. I wouldn't put Hufanga in that position. I remember early on in Hufanga, one of his early starts against Arizona Cardinals, he got matched with uh Christian Kirk on this route. And I'm like, and Christian Kirk just ran right by him. Like, well, of course Christian Kirk ran right by him. Hufanga can't, that's not his thing. You know what I'm saying? So I think with Gibson, they'll continue to figure out what he can and can't do. Hopefully, you put him in positions that don't expose him in that way, and teams will try to put him in that position.
Yeah.
It's on Wilkes to be creative with doing whatever you do with Hufanga and you do it with Gibson. Do those same things with Ji'Ayir because I think he's a similar type player.
Yeah,
As
they
that
have similar strengths and
playmaker,
weaknesses.
playmaker. He's gonna fly around. I loved his tape with just the motor. I loved some of the versatility. I think he could be terrific with, having to defend tight ends, but matching him vertical up to, with a receiver in a slot, and he has to run with that guy vertically. Like that's not going to be his thing. But outside of that, there were some things where he got a fortunate bounce, especially on the interception. Well, of course he made that interception. Just like we've seen for Gibson, who has 30 plus interceptions in his career. Why is he at 30 plus? Because he's Johnny on the spot. Playmakers make plays. They're in position to make plays. We've seen that with Hufanga. Oh, punt blocked. Big time moment against Green Bay Packers. Who's there to pick it up? Of course, it's Hufanga running in for a touchdown. Of course, Hufanga's getting a tipped interception earlier this year. So, like, those guys put themselves in position to make plays because they're playmakers. Ji'Ayir Brown, another one of those guys, 10 interceptions in 2 years at Penn State, led college football during that time. Of course, he's in position when the ball bounces in the air and he catches it and makes the most of that opportunity. So, terrific job by Brown stepping in cold in an opportunity where, man, I wasn't part of the game plan, but now they will make him a part of it. And it's going to be fun to kind of watch him and how he grows. And I think we all expected him to be a long-term answer at safety anyways, not at the expense of Hufanga, but it is going to be good to kind of just see him out there.
He was their like highest drafted pick this year, wasn't he? Am I wrong in
Yep,
that?
yep, he was traded up
Yeah,
for him.
they like traded up. Yeah, so I just thought his story arc was kind of cool because he goes in the game and then immediately, at least I feel like a lot of fans were like, oh, this is why he's not playing, and then just to see him 6 minutes left in the game break up a critical pass where it looks like the Bucks are trying to come back and kind of get it within one score, make it a game, breaks that up, gives the offense an opportunity. You've been on this, hey, offense, why you're not taking advantage of these opportunities. They were for some of it, but by the fourth quarter, I felt like they kind of checked out a little bit. So he breaks up a pass. The offense gets an opportunity. Offense doesn't take advantage of the opportunity. The Bucks are going down there again. What does he do? Picks off a pass in the end zone. I don't know. I thought that was a great. I felt like I was happy that the game ended that way after how it started because I feel like, especially with and you can talk so much more about this, but just when I watched like Jalen Ramsey had like a podcast last year, and a lot of what I've heard people talk about is like how important confidence is in that secondary position. So I just felt like just on a personal level for him, it was really great that the game ended with him kind of making plays. Yeah.
It was great to see him bounce back. And I think that's why typically, even on Twitter, like you didn't see me tweet anything out. No, part of it was I was
I did because I managed.
yeah, part of it I was at this tryout, but the other part of it is, you know, I understand the NFL. Like it's good on good. Sometimes it's great on great, right? So, all right, you got me. You know what I'm saying? You got me on this play, but it's on me to bounce back. And now, okay, I got you. And that's how the NFL works more times than not. And I know that's hard for people to understand. I know everybody wants their players to be the best at everything, but these guys on the other side, they get paid well too. The coordinators on the other side, they get paid to attack certain things or something that might be a weakness for them. And it's on the other team to adjust. And I think with some guys that get beat vertically, with Brown, because of the limitations, it's like that might just always be him, right? Let's say
Yeah.
if I had Denzel Ward at corner, right? Denzel Ward, cornerback for the Browns. If he gets left off the line, burnt, and somebody catches a bomb on him, I won't say it's because he's not fast. Why? Because I know he has that speed, so I know that's not going to be consistent. Like the next time they do that, I think he's going to be in that same. You put him in that same position, and more times than not, like he's going to be in position to make a play. I can't say that for Ji'Ayir Brown. You know what I'm saying? Because he just doesn't have that. So what do? You put him in positions that are good for him to have the most success at this level that he's going to have. And I believe that the 49ers will do that. They've done a terrific job. They don't have the most athletic safeties, but they figure out a way to where these guys play very well doing these things. Let's continue to get them in those type of positions and make it hard for other teams to attack what might be a weakness with having them play out in space. So I'm curious to see how they continue to do that. I see Case 49 says Taylor Hawkins is a dog. He's a safety that I kind of like how he played in the preseason. So it's going to be fun to kind of watch how some of these young guys have to grow on the fly with a team defensively, offensively that has such high expectations.
And Case 49, he says, like, no disrespect to Huff, but he was having a subpar year. I did also think that he was kind of having a down year for his standards. Now I do know he was suffering with an injury it was a Baker's cyst behind his knee. No, I don't know if it was the same knee that he just tore his ACL on, but I know that he was like kind of playing through injury this entire season. So that could have affected some of what was going on. Obviously, you can't if you're out there, you want to judge the player for being out there, but I do know I wonder if that one added to how he got injured and two if that affected his play this year.
We got Gammy here. He says, "Why have Gip and Huff made so many more INTs and more athletic than more athletic Charlton Ward?
Just getting the
Instincts,
ball, just play Michael, right?
instincts.
Yeah.
Maybe seeing things quicker. I've never felt like the most athletic guys are always going to be the best playmakers. It is great when you compare a most athletic guy and he's a playmaker. Like I brought up Minka I think earlier, but like a Minka Fitzpatrick, right? Where when he was coming out of Bama, is like terrific athlete, terrific playmaker. That's why he's going top 10. Like it's same with like Derwin James, terrific athlete, terrific playmaker. Like that's why he's going really high. Ward and Tart, terrific athletes, play very well, but maybe lack that instinct to just be that consistent playmaker.
Mhm.
Uh, I think they had instincts in other areas when it comes to coverage and things like that. Man, I trust Ward. Go guard this guy. Third down, you gonna go guard that slot, that tight end, like lock. I think Tart too, really good. I know what his strengths were, weaknesses. Play well, good coverage guy. But if it's like I need an interception, I don't think that's necessarily
You could
what
like
made those
hand
guys
it to him and
good.
he might not grab it.
Ah, man, don't open that wound up. But
Sorry.
Tart and Ward, they were terrific, but uh,
Mhm.
just some people just have a little bit more of a natural reaction to just a natural like instinct to just making plays. And
Yeah.
Gibson and Hufanga definitely have. I saw someone in the chat ask, does having 30 interceptions put you in the Hall of Fame? Because Gibson has like 30 something. Like he might have 34, 35
Yeah.
career interceptions. Um, I the way they talk about the Hall of Fame, it's can they tell the story of the NFL without mentioning your
Without
name? And there's some guys where like you just can't tell
yeah.
like the story of the NFL and how great this guy was. I don't know who's speaking on behalf of Gibson that he's this player that you can talk about even this 49ers team without mentioning him. Like I think it has to be deeper than stats.
Yeah.
And if you were to talk about the most impactful players on the 49ers right now, I think we would talk about Bosa, we would talk about Fred Warner, we would talk about
A lot of people.
Chase Young that just got here, right? Like Dre Greenlaw, you talk about all these other guys before you get to Gibson. So I think if he's not a Hall of Famer, I think that would be why.
Yeah. 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 I also do want to say that when you read that question out loud, my brain immediately went to quarterbacks and I was like, huh? What do you why would throwing 30 interceptions be good? And then I was like, well, it would depend on how long they're playing. And then I started thinking about Jameis Winston yesterday Did you see? He's the most interesting guy to watch. He's just like he will have open guys in the middle, and he's always going to chuck it down the field. And sometimes it works out, and it's incredible, and you're like, and then most of the time he throws interceptions in the worst time possible, and it's also hilarious to watch when he's not your quarterback. He's so fun to watch. But for some
he,
reason, when I read that, instead of realizing that we're talking about defense, my brain went to quarterbacks.
he had, and I'm talking about Jameis Winston. I mean, he had a year where he threw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. And in this day and age, you just don't see that. Like back in the day, early 2000s, like I think Kurt Warner won NFL MVP, and he had like 22 interceptions that he threw. Like you won't see that in today's day and age. You got just the way the game is, how efficient offenses are able to be. You typically don't see like a high total of interceptions like that. So Jameis Winston, he's just an interesting guy, and he's fun to watch. He's fun kind of just to listen to talk. But everything I hear about him, like super smart, understands the game. He just does some wild stuff at times. So shout out to Jameis Winston. But you know what, guys, man, that's going to do it for this episode of the Eric Crocker Show. Shout out to everybody. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, all that good stuff. Follow Ashley on Twitter. Just find her, Ashley Ariana. Follow me on Twitter at Eric_Crocker. And again, promo code Crocky at Underdog Fantasy. Download the app, all that good stuff, so we can go make some money. But that's going to do it for the stream. And I'll for sure see y'all Wednesday, maybe Tuesday, for an all bring everybody on Tuesday. We'll see. Until then, I'm out. Peace.